Yes, please take a seat, everyone, so we can start. So, Indian Ambassador to Norway, Dr. Aquino Vimal, Norwegian Ambassador from Norway to India, Mylene Sterna, speakers, panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helge Tryti, and I'm chairman of Norway-Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, NICI. And it's a great pleasure for me on behalf of Team Norway and India to wish you all welcome to this event. It focuses on the historic trade and economic partnership agreement with India, signed on March 10th this year after 17 years of negotiations. Today we will focus on what's the mean of Norwegian export, businesses, and the green shift. We have with us here today a distinguished group of speakers and panelists representing important government organizations and businesses, many with years of experience doing business in India. The trade agreement sets ambitious targets that will require public-private partnership for us to reach it. I hope we can all cooperate and contribute to make the most out of the trade agreement and be ready to take advantage of the agreement as soon as it's ratified. We look forward to the presentations and the discussions. We will continue the discussions not in this location, but we will have a gathering, mingling with food at Statsforvalterens offices in Fløyveien 14 from 1500. You're all welcome. You may register on our website, which is niki.no, under Arendal. So I just want to wish you all the best for the event, and with these words I give the word to the Ambassador, Mylene Sterna, and for a few words of thanks.
Thank you so much, and welcome everyone. It's great to see so many people here. It should be like that, because we are talking about the most populous country in the world, the 5th largest economy. It's also the fastest growing of the big economies. So many people expect it will be the 3rd largest economy in a few years. So it's good that we also see here in Arendal that the interest is so big and the room is almost full. I was the really lucky one, together with a couple of others here, to be present in Delhi on 10 March this year, when a minister from Norway and India and from the other EFTA countries signed the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement as the first group of European countries. It was really a historic moment, and this is what we are going to dig into today and look into what does it mean? It is clear, it means a lot, but then some of the details all the distinguished panelists will help us look into today. So it will be an interesting hour that we have ahead of us, and again, welcome everyone. On the practical side, Helge, we should say that when we finish, please go out that door, because that's better for the next group of people coming in. It will help the logistics. So with those words, I will start off here. We have 2 panels, as mentioned by Helge. But before that, we have an update on the Indian economy. We've got an expert here from the ICICI Bank. I cannot explain what ICICI means, so you have to do that, Devdat. But I know that he is really the best man and heading the Europe office of ICICI to explain us where is the Indian economy heading now. Devdat, Panda, you're welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to present the Indian economy, the status at this event. So I'll take you through a few slides on the Indian economy and the growth story of India. There's a lot of data and information and numbers into the slides. In the interest of time, which is a very tight timeline that I have, I would request you to assimilate the numbers, and I will do the talking around it. So what does India has now? It's a roadmap to a developed economy by 2047. We still have more than 2 decades to it. So we have milestones around it also. So India aspires to be a 7 trillion economy by 2030. And this will largely come from 2 areas. One is the consumption side, and the second is the investment. The consumption is around 60%, and the rest is the investment. But the question is it achievable? So if you look at India's growth journey and these circles around it, I think the first trillion to be added after 2008 took 7 years. The next trillion, another 7 years. But now as we stand, we are at $3.8 trillion. So it's around 2 years. So the reaching a 5 trillion or a 3 trillion by 5 trillion by 27 and 7 trillion by 2030 looks achievable. Now, the next is that where is it coming from? It's largely coming from consumption, 1.4 billion people, a huge domestic consumption, physical infra, huge investments into it, road, rail network, seaports, airports, sanitation, water, drinking water, green energy. All these are things which are booming the infrastructure segment. And it is not only the physical side, there is also digital infrastructure that is booming. So India has a lot of digitization that is done, and we will cover that in the coming slides. Government has a lot of incentives for manufacturing and exporting from India to the region. So these are some of the areas which will lead to the growth. But again, when we look at the consumption side, so what is it that drives the consumption? So I would say India is blessed to have a demographic situation whereby it has a very young population with a median age of 31. And if you look at the present situation, we have more than 90% of the people who are less than 64 years of age. And fast forward to 2100, that is 75 years from now, the percentage still remains at 70, which is a big number. And this large workforce slowly increases the household income. And if you look at the bottom, this side, you will see how the bottom of the pyramid is actually narrowing. And the top of the pyramid is increasing, which means that the high income and the mid-up income household will go up significantly, which will ultimately result in consumption. It is expected that the consumption will go up by 6 times, $0.6 trillion to $3.6 trillion by 2030. But again, the consumption, which are the sectors? So as the disposable income increases, the need for better quality, premium quality of products and services increases. Exactly that is what we see out here. And this will cater to food, travel, transport, health, communication, entertainment. All these segments will be in the focus for consumption. But this is the consumption story. Now we'll look at the infrastructure and the investment story. So this clearly shows that how India has done some great work in the infrastructure segment in the past years. So it is not only the talk, it is also action happening. And this gives the confidence that it will improve further. Now some of the segments, look at electrification, the first on the left side. It has improved from 80% in 2016 to 99.6% currently. The airports, last 10 years, moved from 74 to 148, doubled. And this is not it. I think by 2025, we are looking at 220. Road network, 150,000 kilometers of highway. Just to give you a data, right now the road construction that is happening for highways is 34 kilometers per day, which was around 12 kilometers in 2014. So there's a huge, huge movement in terms of that. And that's not the only thing. Agri is also there. Now, this is, again, kind of the data that we are talking about in the previous slide. But something to note also here is the green energy. We have a target of around 500 gigawatt by 2030, which is a big thing. So here there's the digital infrastructure that we are talking about. Apart from the physical, the digital part. 1 billion, close to 1 billion people using internet in India. The data consumption is 25 GB per person per annum. That's a big number. And I think the Indian payment systems has been completely revolutionized by UPI. When I say UPI, it's the unified payment interface that we are talking about. Just to give you an example, a bottom of the pyramid guy who is having a household income of less than $4,000, a vegetable vendor on the streets, can receive payments through UPI without any cash for an amount of $50. That's the change that has been brought about through this UPI. And all these things, they need digital infra to function. Here, if we look at the social media platforms, most of them have the largest user base in India. Now, the government says, and has stipulated policies and regulations, which says that the data has to be stored locally, which means more infra. Now, on the manufacturing side, again, there was Make in India programs, which has been there everywhere. In any embassy, Indian embassy you go, you would see that outside of India. And there are production-linked incentives that have come up, which was initially for 16 sectors. But I think right now the government is also thinking of extending this. This will again give thrust to the much-needed manufacturing in India. And this is just, again, not the talk. There's one example. If you see, if we would compare this with what happened for Samsung in Vietnam, they exported around $65 billion of goods outside from Vietnam. And that is exactly what is moving in that direction Apple is doing. So Apple phones, 12% of the supply is right now being produced in India, which is roughly around $14 billion. And if we move in this direction, it will further increase. So, we talked about manufacturing, we talked about consumption. There is also a lot of things that is happening on the services sector. And this is a natural growth that has come up. And this is with global capability centers. What are they? They're typically, I would say, shared services which support the corporate center. And this is across industry. It is not for a particular sector or for a particular segment, but it is across industries. And it goes into financial accounting, research, analytics, data science, everything. US has taken the major pie, but European MNCs are also increasing. And frankly speaking, I spoke to an European MNC which has a GCC in India. And they, apart from whatever services that they use, they did tell me that, they also dip into the pool for taking talent out of them for the global operations. So that's the kind of thing that is happening out here. Definitely, the third term, the government is into, the 2 terms have been stable, the third term is also stable, and they're looking at all the, key areas like green energy, logistics, manufacturing, and favorable FDI. They're also looking at EV infra in this. So I think, apart from this, the major points with respect to the fundamentals of India's economy is also looking strong and improving. So while we are the 5th largest in terms of GDP, but we are the 3rd largest in terms of PPP. If you look at the inflation, it's going down, expected to be somewhere around 4.5%. Healthy forex reserves, and there is an improvement in the ease of doing business. So all these put together, I would say that I would summarize it this way, that it's a large young population that will cater to the global requirements and drive consumption. Huge investment in infrastructure, government incentives for manufacturing, and China plus strategy is also, plus one strategy is also helping India. So all put together, I would say we are on the road for a developed economy by 2047. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Devdat. That's a very useful background when we now will look more into the Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement. What are the implications for the export from Norway? What are the implications for business in India? This is what we need when we go further into that discussion. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
The next panel will be chaired by my very close colleague in New Delhi, Christian Carter. He is heading Innovation Norway in India. And we're working very closely together, as I said. And he will now chair the next panel and also present the panelists. Christian, you must get the mic.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Good afternoon to all joining us here in Arendal, as well as all the people from around the globe joining us online. A very warm welcome. We have limited time, and this is a very important discussion, so I'll go just straight to the introduction of the panelists, and I will request you all to come up on stage. So I'll start with His Excellency Dr. Aquino Vimal, India's ambassador to Norway. Please come on stage. My good boss, Mr. Håkon Haugli, CEO of Innovation Norway, welcome up on stage. We have Ms. Sunniva Tofte from the Kongsberg Group, Senior Vice President, Public Affairs. We have Ms. Betty Aasheim, CCO and board member at Fiven. And last but not least, the man in green, we have Mr. Terje Hauan, CTO at SAID. Give them all a round of applause. Thank you. I'll stand here. So once again, a warm welcome. Extremely proud to have you all with us today. And these are indeed exciting times for all of us. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, that this historic trade agreement between the EFTA countries and Norway provides the Norwegian industries with advantages and benefits that other markets and other group of countries don't have yet, like the EU, like the UK, that are still negotiating free trade agreements with India. And India is, as we have learned today, already a vast market and the world's fastest growing large economy. The trade agreement not only establishes more predictable framework conditions for our industries, but also, as I said, enhances the competitive advantages that we already have and the export opportunities for Norwegian industries. The agreement entails, among other things, that India over 10 years will remove the tariffs on 93% of Norwegian exports to India. So within 10 years, almost all of the products that we export to India will have zero tariffs. In fact, when the agreement enters into force, 53% will have zero tariffs, and within 5 years, 82% will have zero tariffs. So there's a stepwise reduction in the tariffs. And this means, for example, that one of our most important export commodities, seafood, will have zero tariffs within 5 years, down from 40% today. And that represents huge opportunities, especially for the seafood industries and, of course, for other industries. Under the same trade agreement, Norway and the EFTA countries will also work to promote and facilitate foreign direct investments to India, fostering sustainable development and sustainable jobs. There's already also a significant, I would say, demand for green Norwegian technologies in India, and we anticipate that this will also facilitate more inflow of Norwegian green companies and technologies. So we very much look forward to implement this agreement in close cooperation with the Indian government. I'll start with you, Ambassador, and with Håkon. Ask you the same questions, but I'll start with you, Ambassador. And to start with, how do you envision the agreement strengthening the economic bilateral ties between Norway and India?
Thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. And very happy to see some familiar faces, which means that last 1 year has been quite useful. Been around many places in Norway, and I'm quite happy that Arendal, which brings everybody together, you had decided to spare some time and join this session. So thank you all for coming. Trade agreement has been the unique piece which we had signed, and that's something which has now pushed and created a new attention towards India in Norway. So that's something which Christian mentioned, and I think you also saw what the presentation about India's economy, how it is and how it is growing. So I'll not repeat that. I'll just focus on the trade agreement so that we are a bit more practical on what we are looking at. So the meetings around, when I go around and I meet people, one thing which keeps coming, like, okay, what's going to happen? Like how things are going to involve in this and how it's going to benefit us. Now, when we look at trade agreements, people see what is immediately obvious to them and what some things which perhaps they may not be very obvious to them. So I would say there are a lot of win-wins, as one says, or something called a mutual benefit, which everyone has. You know, maritime sector is something which he mentioned. The export of seafoods is something which is mentioned. Now, again, one has to look at seafood from a win-win kind of an approach, because if you're exporting salmon to India, then you're actually looking at development of a cold chain network in India. You're looking at a packaging and the export distribution networks in India, and you automatically see that it's a commodity, but actually it's adding to the Indian economy. So it's something which works in a very mutually beneficial manner. There's also this whole element of investments in India. Now, it says that there is to be an investment of $100 billion in the next 15 years from EFTA. I hope Norway will take 40% of it, so that's 40%, $40 billion from Norway in the next 15 years. Which would also mean a lot of employment generation. So it's not what we are looking at as institutional investors going to the share market or stocks to do the investment, but these are basically FDIs going to the Indian market and going to India and then investing in India to develop the Indian economy. Now here is something which is a win-win again for Norway, which one has to look at. Because what I see and I felt is that Norway is kind of a technology partner of India. And you have some of the tremendous and very useful technologies, very niche, very useful, and it can actually develop a whole lot of ecosystem in India when it comes to landing in India. So you might come with the technology, but when it actually comes to India, it can actually develop a whole lot of ecosystem. And this is something which we need to work on, because we all get into this chicken egg trap kind of a thing, like how do you participate in tenders? Norwegians are expensive. How do you enter into the Indian market? And we need to find a way out. We have to welcome the minister who is here. So, so we need to find a way of creating that landing zone for the Norwegian technologies to come in. And this is something which we will be talking to Innovation Norway, talking to the clusters here, and to see that how we can create that space for the Norwegian enterprises to find a kind of a technology partner in India who can develop the technologies in India and develop a whole lot of ecosystem around it. And that's the key in this whole exercise. So we would look forward to greater engagements with you for some very specific and kind of a pointed approach on how do you look at every sector, whether we are looking at fisheries, you're looking at aquaculture, you're looking at renewable energy, you're looking at anything. I mean, there's a whole lot of things, subsea, you have kind of technology advancements, a lot of field. Just one more point. So what I would rather suggest is that while we are working on these, many of you have visited India. I know many of you have gone multiple times to India, but there are some who are still very curious about India. And some who would have gone to India maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's a completely different India. The figures which you saw perhaps doesn't represent what it is, unless until you actually go there. Visit once. And I would invite you to attend some of the trade fairs we have, some of the expos we have. See there, what's happening there. And that will provide you the kind of a matchmaking and a landing ground in India. So I'll just stop here. Maybe
Thank
later.
you. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Same question to you, Håkon. So how do you, foresee the development of our economic ties with India following the agreement?
Yeah, Ambassador, first let me thank you for your invitation. And in fact, the whole free trade agreement is an invitation to Norway. Innovation Norway has been in India for a long time, and we are certainly there for the long term. But let me just categorically say that there's been no better time to develop business ties between India and Norway than now. And this is due to many things, but the free trade agreement certainly provides a platform. But we're also seeing some other things, and let me just share with you 4 observations. The first is, with the changes in India, the demand reflects Norwegian strengths better than before. And we see, I mean, seafood clearly has been mentioned, but we see with many technology areas that the green transition in India is a call to Norwegian companies to bring the technology that we've developed to India. Everything from waste management to hydrogen, energy production, energy distribution, energy systems, etc. So we are at a really good point, but this is not something that's going to happen by itself. So that's my second point. We need people on the ground. Norwegian companies need to seize this opportunity, and it's not an abstract or academic exercise. We need to be active in the Indian market. Now, the third observation is the starting point. And Christian, correct me if I'm wrong, but at times the Norwegian exports to India are at the same size as those of the combined Nordics other than Norway. So larger than Sweden, Denmark, and Finland's exports combined. So it's not like we're starting from scratch. And that brings me to my 4th point. It's the need to slice the pie. India is it's a continent. It's the world's biggest market. It's the most populous country. It's rapidly developing. For a single Norwegian company, or in fact for a group of companies to navigate in India is quite a challenging task. And let me then build on the ambassador's comment and extend an invitation to the clusters. Sliding that pie, I think we need to do that by looking at very specific areas where Norway has strengths. They are very much reflected in our business cluster program. So Innovation Norway, in cooperation with the clusters, can do something to slice the pie, to make feasibility studies, look at the technology areas in which we can work together. And so by that, I look forward to the conversation. So no better time than now, but we do need to do the work ahead of us.
Thank you. Thank you both for setting the context. Just a quick comment from Ambassador.
Yeah, just add 2 more points here. Invitation is also quite open because we have e-visa, business visa for the Norwegians, so you really don't have to visit us in the embassy. Go online, apply for the visa. We give you 1-year business visa, multiple entry. But if you want a long-term 5-year multiple entry visa, please visit us. We'll give you in the same day. Just that you tell us and come, we will make sure that you get the visas on the same day. The second point, we have been having a lot of state governments, the same point which Håkon was making about, India is too big, which is something which you will realize when you visit India. But identify a couple of states, and we had 3 state governments who have come here and done roadshows. One was state government of Uttar Pradesh, one was Andhra Pradesh, and then Tamil Nadu. Now, these 3 have a combined population of maybe around 400 million, if I'm not wrong. That will be good enough for you for the next maybe 50 years. So if you could just focus on some states and just see that they are an economy in themselves, and you will be easily able to find a match in them. And they all have their own investor meetings. They invite all the foreigners and foreign investors to come and look at India, find partners there, they do the matchmaking. So we can work on it. So please be more specific with your request. I'm quite sure we'll be able to do much more greater facilitation for you all.
It's a great point, isn't it? The pie is so big that even a tiny slice is enough for us.
Absolutely. Yes. Let's move on to our next speakers. And we're very fortunate to have with us the Kongsberg Group with you, Sunniva. Thank you so much for joining. You represent multiple businesses in India. And please share about the activities that you are involved in through your different entities.
Thank you. And just to pick up on the 2 previous speakers, then I think Kongsberg is both experienced but still curious. And we have a slice of the pie, but we're hungry for more. Kongsberg is, as some of you might know, I think it's fair to say, a fairly large technological company. We export around 80%, and we're present in 40 countries around the world. of which India is one, where we've been for many decades and have a long-standing history. And out of our almost 14,000 employees, 600 or about 600 are actually in India. Our two main areas in India, in the Indian market, is Kongsberg Maritime, where we in Mumbai have an office, or we have almost 200 employees. They support ships with our Kongsberg technology on board. And having said that, 1/3 of the world fleet actually has Kongsberg technology on board, so it's quite a lot of ships. So what our employees do, they support both the installation of equipment and technology on ships that are built in India, and also service ships that actually have Kongsberg technology on board. And we recently opened a new facility in Kochi in India, and we hope that's where we plan to enhance customer support for the water jets and also the assembly of these. And the other area that I have to mention, because this is actually where we have over 300 employees, is Kongsberg Digital. I think we have about 330 employees in, yes.
Bangalore.
Yeah. Thank you, Kirsten.
I've met all of them.
In the Bangalore office. And our office, or a center in Bangalore, they both do development, innovation, high-tech innovation in the area of digital services and also support. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. This actually reminds me of a meeting that I attended where your president, Gahr met with a chairman of an Indian shipyard. And so Kongsberg is the supplier to the shipyard. And I've never seen a customer asking the supplier, please don't go anywhere. We need you. So I think that reflects, the importance of Kongsberg as a key supplier to especially the Indian shipyard industry. So it's a pleasure working with you on the ground. I'll move on to Betty. You represent a very important company, known to many people here in the region. And you produce also stuff that is very important within many sectors. Could you please share with the audience, and including those who are joining us online, about 5N's global business and where you see the biggest potential for growth for 5N?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. We produce stuff. I will bring you to where it started for us. It started actually in the late 1890s. An American chemist, he wanted to make artificial diamond. He didn't manage. Out comes silicon carbide. But equal to diamond, it's very, very hard, one of the hardest material in the world. It's very light. It can stand in very, very rough environment. We call it chemically inert. And it also can stay in extremely high temperature without any expansion. And then, when this was discovered, only 20 years after, it was a Norwegian entrepreneur, Sameda. He learned about the idea, and he thought he would bring it to Norway. So he built a plant here in Arendal, because in... Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh.
Did you hear everything about the diamond? Good. It's important. He brought it here to Norway because it was low cost for energy, low cost for workforces. He wanted to meet the need of the steel production and European industrial revolution, and he did. So we were then a key material for that. Today, we are a key material for the green shift. For the green shift, I mean electrification, climate monitoring in the case of satellites, because you need satellites that can stand in rough environment and high temperature changes and still send accurate data. And the purest form of silicon carbide also becomes semiconductor. So, and in addition to these global trends, we also see the geopolitical situation. Most of the body armor today is made of silicon carbide, the plate inside. So it's for human protection for humans and also for vehicles. Today, 5N here in Arendal has the strongest position in our group. We have production in many countries. But to keep the position as the strongest in the group, we have had to innovate always. Norway is no longer cheap on energy or cheap in workforces, so we have had to increase the value of our powder before we export. So we have managed to increase the value to be really advanced and taken the position on the global leader of silicon carbide. In 1914, Sameide registered the trademark Sika. It stands for the Norwegian word silicium carbide. We still use the brand Sika, and it's known in the industry as high quality. And it cannot be by coincidence that we have this strong position. So I will say we are almost like a diamond in the Norwegian industry.
Absolutely, yes.
And for the Norwegian market, I see many large potentials. And if we follow these global trends of electrification, efficient energy, electrical vehicles, trains, and so on, that's one part. And also filtering liquid and gases, the need of clean water, for example. Waste, you mentioned waste treatment. That's also an important part of what we are delivering to. So my goal is to be a preferred partner for several of the companies in India who are looking for innovation and high quality. We all already import to India, but I would enlarge this by many times.
And we're very proud and happy to be working with you on that. Next is a man in India known as the man in green, Mr. Terje Hauan. You have, really set, conferences on fire with your, tremendously brilliant speeches. Your company deals with various businesses in India. You have your core business in odor abatement and VOC systems, but you also have succeeded in developing, I would say, a groundbreaking technology for hydrogen production, clean hydrogen productions. So, and you have very recently also bagged important contracts with players like ArcelorMittal. So please share with us how your India journey has been, and share some of the key enablers for doing success in the Indian market.
Well, we are probably the smallest company on stage and probably in the audience, so we're less than 30 people. SIDE is a small Stavanger-based company, so if you wonder if it's the abbreviation for anything, SIDE is something from the Viking Age. So the side man was the magician, or the side woman could tell the future. So this is perfect description of a Norwegian high-tech company entering into India. So, but we've been in India for 17 years. I would not claim we started the trade agreement, but we've been there through the trade agreement. So we made the first deliveries in 2007, but it's been extremely tough. Most Norwegian companies are unknown in India. Even companies like Equinor, we hardly know them. Yara, somebody will know them, but we are unknowns. So we are also delivering high-quality premium products into a market which, used to look for Chinese low-cost systems and didn't pay the attention on air pollution. Now, Prime Minister Modi said that air pollution is #1 challenge for India, and we do just that. We deliver air pollution control systems, basically delivering clean air. The largest client we have in Norway, by chance, is Fyven, which we have the largest industrial air pollution control system in Norway, in Europe, at Fyven's facility in Lillesand. So that's kind of like 20 years ago we started that delivery. So, but
I didn't know that.
No, probably she didn't know it either. So that's the interesting part of it. But for us, for India, it's important. We see the changes now. Now they're saying we need the high-quality stuff because we need to give the Indian population cleaner air. So we are willing to pay extra. So we have been, chasing the market for the last 3 years because we saw that the trade agreement is coming into work, so now we need to speed up to be there at this present. And we had, being a small company, we need assistance. We can't do it alone. Even if I'm grønn og bærekraftig, as you say it in Norwegian, we can't do it alone. So we've been using this guy and his team and the Innovation Norway team to build credibility. So we've been inviting ourselves, or Christian's been inviting us into larger companies and giving us that credibility. Here comes SIDE, small company, but supported by Innovation Norway, which is the governmental agency of Norway. That brings credibility I can't do myself. So it's extremely important that, that is one of the key reasons why we are now succeeding, because we have the technology, it's working, it's proven. We have been delivering this technology to 34 countries already. So now we want to have a bigger slice of India, much bigger slices of India, but we know we need to take the time. We need to mature it. And the same as I'm being invited to talk to conferences is about hydrogen production. So one of the key areas we are seeing is, India's got a lot of resources. This is methane. Yeah, this could be a terrible climate gas, or it could be a fantastic opportunity. So India is filled with biogas potential. That's methane. It's filled with coal bed methane. Those resources are substantially larger than Norwegian gas resources, but it seems to be India's missing out on that information. I'm happy to provide that information for free. So we are seeing that as a possibility. So we are on the scene on delivering systems to India. We are getting tractions. We're getting support from Innovation Norway, and that's very important. Without that support, we would not succeed, just to be very blunt about that case. So extremely important. So the basis is we hope to grow with the support of Innovation Norway with our side.
Thank you. I hope this is recorded.
Yeah.
Thank you for the kind feedback. This actually brings me to my next question, and this is for all of you. But starting with Håkon. So, do you think that we actually have the tools to assist Norwegian companies exploring the international markets, or what can we do to develop this further?
Well, I think the free trade agreement is one really, really important tool. In addition to that, I'm really happy about all the contributions and very inspiring. But also, I think, given the complexity of the Indian market, we do need people on the ground, both in companies, but also on behalf of the Norwegian government. And yes, obviously, it's also always a calibration exercise. I mean, where do we put our resources? But this is a time to really go after the opportunities in India. So rather, I think we have most of the tools, but we could certainly calibrate differently.
I can say that the collaboration across Team Norway has been, one of the success factors for, being able to put you guys on stage in big conferences and, taking the help from ambassador to open up doors. The consul general in Mumbai, Gujarat, and Goa is certainly one of the. It is the tool that we have on the ground. So
yeah, I mean, there are many things we're not great at in Norway, but there is one thing that we are really good at, and that's collaboration. Because we are a small country, we do collaborate. There is trust between the government and businesses, between businesses. Information is shared, and this distinguishes us from many of the countries that we compete with. So regardless of what we do, let's maintain that and go for cooperative efforts also in making strides into taking new slices or increasing slices.
Thank you. Tarja, you are happy. I'm sure we can do more, but from the two representatives from Fiven and Kongsberg, so are there any, let's say, inputs to us as trade promotion organizations, government, things that we can implement to help you further, explore and expand the Indian market, starting with you, Sunniva?
Well, I think as with many markets, the sort of understanding the market is key, and obviously the embassy and you are important for us in that sense, to understand what the market is and where the market is, and to identify the opportunities that are there.
Yeah, and we have now started a project together with you, which have very, very high expectations of, and to learn, to, like you say, door openers, and also to understand more what is the actual need. I mean, we deliver to many customers going to the same end market, but the request for each of them may not be the same. So to come across this bridge of culture, for example, to co-develop, to get trust, to get long relationships, you are key for us to come there.
Thank you. I also want to add to what you just said, that we have a very proactive ambassador also that is extremely good at really communicating, Indian culture and business culture. So it's been a pleasure also traveling, on these road shows together with you like we did before the summer. But anything you want to comment on what has just been said?
I just want to add, yes, Innovation Norway is great. Please work with them. But we are not that bad. So if you are... because what we have done as part of TIPA, not just TIPA, but generally in terms of investment. Now, it's a bit... it might appear counterintuitive, but we are also here to promote Norwegian investments in India, not just them. So you can also look at us for certain guidance. But what we have done in India for investment promotion is that we have created a separate body called Invest India. And we also have a kind of a desk which looks into foreigners who come to India to... want to go? I'll complete it. Oh, okay. So basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to facilitate whoever reaches out, what sector you're looking at and where you want to look at, and provide them the right kind of a connect, which is important for a business-to-business kind of a mature contact which you want to do. But more importantly, as I mentioned about the provinces, the state governments in India, I mean, you have almost all the state governments in India who have also opened up their own investment promotion arms, and they are more than happy to kind of guide you, help you to connect. But I think what is also important in Indian context is there is a whole lot of others who are there. You have the ICICI, you have all the big fours, you have all the other advisory boards and investment support organizations who are there to extend an helping hand. Very sectoral, you can go to specific sector and you know who will be there to kind of connect with you or who can be your partner. So it's a market which is exploding, and it's not that you'll get burnt, it's just that you need to find the right partner and you'll be able to establish in India. So Innovation Norway is something which we are also kind of pushing them to connect with all the investments, state government investment promotion bodies so that they can work together, because they create a site of kind of a meeting ground for people to come and engage. So
Thank you.
all are welcome.
Very important input, and you won't get burned, but it can get very hot in India. But do come. Håkon?
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore what I think is also one of the ambassador's points. It's a two-way street. We talk about exports as if something that we bring to a market, but it's technology development, innovation development. The world needs solutions. And by working together in research, in technology development, in innovation, and in businesses, we can advance the frontier. And this, I think, the partnership between India and Norway provides a foundation. So I'm very optimistic. I hope we meet again in a year and evaluate and see where we've made progress in a cooperative manner. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Partnership is a key word, and in most of the processes that we're involved in, we facilitate partnerships. So win-win situations is what we need to create. That's the most sustainable way of doing business, isn't it? So we are out of time, and I just want to say that I think this has been a very productive conversation, and thank you so much for your contributions and your kind feedback. And with that, I close this session and invite my good colleague from the embassy, Silje Andersen, on stage. He will moderate the next session. Please give them a round of applause, everyone. And yeah. Thank you, Silje. Yes.
Thank you so much, Christian, and good afternoon to everyone. So this next conversation that we will have will center around one of the most fundamental challenges that the world is facing, which is green transition and how to move to a more sustainable world and to develop new modes of energy. So I'd like to invite the next panelists on stage. So we have the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Norway, Espen Barth Eide. We have Afroz Shah joining us. We have Norfund, Tellef Torleifsson. We have representatives from Tomra and Kambi. We have Tove Andersen and Per Lillebø. Perfect. And we have Samit Ahuja, who will also be joining us. So, as we have seen now, with the rapid economic growth going on in India and the growth of industry and of consumers, India at the same time is now going through a major change, a major green transition, and a major shift towards renewable energy. India has set very ambitious climate goals to install
500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity before 2030 and to become net zero by 2070. But it will also be the country in the next 20 years with the largest increase in energy demand, which of course will need to develop a lot of more clean energy. This is estimated to amount to investments of about $350 billion in the next 6 years only. And so completed then with the new trade and economic partnership, this creates huge opportunities also for Norway and for Norwegian businesses, especially within renewable energy sector. So I'd like to start by asking the Minister of Foreign Affairs, in the Norwegian government's India strategy, energy and environment is also a key priority. So why is India and green transition in India so important for Norway? And what do you think the new trade and economic partnership agreement can contribute to in this regard?
Thank you very much, and I will answer that. But since I took the stage now, if I may just say how thrilled we are that we now have this agreement between EFTA and India. It's incredibly important for us. We're so happy that we got there. It was a lot of work. It took many years, but it really matters, and we really want to fill that with serious content. Building, of course, on already very good relations, but it opens new opportunities. And I should say, I love the EU, but it's great that we beat them and we managed to get our engagement first. And the second opening thing, if you allow me, and then I'll behave later, is that I have had the pleasure of following India through most of my life. It's 50 years since I visited first, and this was in the midst of India as a very socialist regulated economy in 1974. A fascinating experience. The eternal nation is as great as it has ever been and is today, but all cars were black and called Ambassador, if you saw a car. And we traveled to a city called Benares, which of course is Varanasi, by steam engine train. So, the travel, and I've been many times since, the travel that country has been through is breathtaking. And I love to remind people of the number 263. And 263 are the numbers of Indians walking on the planet per Norwegian. And that's always good to remember. Norway matters, but India matters more when it comes to global issues. And of course, India, there is no green transition on the planet if there's none in India. So its sheer size, the size of its economy, it's the 5th economy, I believe, right now, but destined to be at least the 3rd economy on the planet, which, by the way, is normalizing to where it was 200 years ago. It's also back to basics, but of course a much larger economy because it's a larger world. There is no way without. So, to engage, partner, learn from, but also share experiences with India across the board in energy transition. And I worked a lot of that, and also with the Indian counterparts. That is such a massive undertaking in India, but there's also so massive opportunities. And energy transition is not only providing clean electricity, you also need to distribute it, because there is no transition without transmission. And you need to be able to use it, because there's not much use in a charging station if your car is an Ambassador running on diesel. So you need to transform all the elements of that chain. And the sky is the limit when it comes to the connection between Norway, which is Europe's #1 energy provider, which all the experiences that brings us, both for contemporary current energy, but also future energy, but also our experiences in electrifying Norway, both in a physical sense, but also in a more metaphorical sense. There's a lot to do together with India.
Thank you so much. And you are very right in the fact that India is huge, biggest population on this planet, and no one knows better than our next speaker, our good friend Afra Shah. to introduce Afros a little bit to all of you. Afros is an Indian lawyer who has been crowned UN Champion of the Earth for starting a very inspiring movement in his hometown of Mumbai, where he is, of course, most famous for creating this beach cleanup movement in Warsaw Beach, where he lives. And this has also expanded, and he's now driving real change in the environmental mindset of people living in the slums in Mumbai and also in rural areas in the state of Maharashtra. So thank you so much for joining us here in Arendal. You have worked also with Norway for several years, I know, and you've also been cleaning fjords actually in Norway. But maybe you can talk a little bit about, of course, your story, but also how Norway and India can contribute on this field, how to reduce plastic pollution and how to create a more sustainable and circular economy.
Thank you for having me here. Good afternoon, everybody. And let me rejoin what the minister said, 1:263. But let me tell you on the quality terms, you are very special. Norwegians are very special. They score far higher as 1:263. I still remember I met the first Norwegian. I didn't know much about Norway, born in Mumbai. And the first Norwegian who came to my beach cleanup was a very special man from Norway, Erik Solheim. He was the UN Environment Chief, and he messaged me on Twitter. He said, Afros, what are you doing in Mumbai? I said, come, fly down and see what are we doing, what the problem is. And that's how the journey with Norway started. Every Norwegian who comes to Mumbai actually becomes a part of our family here. Norwegians are special for many, many attributes. One of them is what we are here to talk about, circular economy and sustainability. As a lawyer, I have read through the agreement, and I was discussing with Malin also the other evening. We have drawn a broad framework on sustainability as part of this agreement. We must drive it. Article 11 of that agreement sets out very clearly what the goal should be. Then it sets out a little bit of mechanism on forming subcommittees and joint committees of how to push the agenda forward. But, as a lawyer, what baffles me now is how will we go about for the next 2 years? It's like in English language, you say, the skeleton is ready, fill the blood and the flesh now. And that is very, very crucial. Otherwise, greenwashing and sustainability, the parallel, you can't even differentiate in your regular life. You'll see a person on a stage talk about sustainability, circular economy. The moment he steps down, he does everything which is against circular economy. And this goes true to everybody in the world. And, Norwegians that way. The Indo-Norwegian partnership, Afrosha Foundation, we formed it at the behest of the Norwegian government and the minister in India, Hardeep Singh Puri, who literally forced us. We saw a ray of hope in how Norwegians proceeded to actually guide us on where we should be going. And I have no hesitation in saying that every Norwegian who landed in Mumbai to help with a big problem of waste management and circular economy was an unprecedented backing at the ground level. If you saw a Norwegian minister cleaning a beach, it sent out a message. Beach cleanups are misunderstood. I must point out to the audience here, beach cleanups are the eyes and ears of pollution, marine pollution. They may not be the solution, and they may not be the end of the solution, but what they do is they bring it out what the problem is. And I hope through this agreement of ours, TIPA, where, companies are going to collaborate, we talk about profit. I think if we make profit and investment and do well with a heart attached to it. Yesterday I spoke about it at length, that if the ESG mechanism in the world, in India we are pushing through, all corporates who work with me, they are supposed to do some kind of governance module, which the Norwegian companies will see it. The minister, it's called ESG governance, where every company lists out what did he do for social sector, environmental sector, and generally governance. Now, if on that aspect where the negotiation has merged and it's formed into a formal treaty eventually, if we are able to put that flesh and blood to that, the ESG mechanism, say for example, Tomra is here, Tro was in Mumbai. If you are able to do that with a company whom you tie up, I think it'll be wonderful. This agreement is in the right direction, but we'll have to push it harder in the right direction, especially, where sustainability is concerned. Yeah. I read through those chapters on sustainability, Article 11, 11.1, 11.12, where we have talked about great goals, Now implementing those great goals will be what we should look forward to. And thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure. And I always come to Norway. We clean the fjords, Minister. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
So on that count, India and Norway are equal. So we clean the beaches and the fjords as well. So there's nothing to worry. And I think with Tomra here, they've been doing an exceptional job in India. And I hope they develop it far more. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll come back to the question of implementation a little bit later, but I want to come back to something that you also mentioned, and that is investments. And of course, investments in sustainable solutions and clean energy in India is really needed for them to reach all of the climate goals and the sustainable goals. And one of the Norwegian entities that are doing this now is Norfund. So the Norwegian Investment Fund for Developing Countries, and especially their climate investment mandate, are investing a lot in India. Actually, 2/3 of their investments have already gone to India. So I want to ask the CEO of Norfund, Tellef, very nice to have you here. Why is India such an important market for Norfund? And can you share a little bit about the projects that you have ongoing in India?
Thank you, and thanks a lot for being here, Ambassador, Minister. It's great to see this assembly. Firstly, I must say I get so energized when I go to India. I travel to a number of countries, and not all of those give me energy. But coming to India, there's so much change, so much going on, such aggressive growth, such optimism. The sky's the limit, so it's great being in India. And over the years, as you said, Minister, how things have transformed, changed. It's unimaginable unless you go there and see it with your own eyes. On the energy side, the challenge being that growth in India currently is around 6%, 6.5, 5.5, whatever you put it. But the energy consumption grows more or less at the same level as the GDP growth. In our part of the world, we can still grow our GDP, but we don't necessarily grow the energy consumption because we transform more into services. That energy provisioning is, to a large extent, furnished through coal-fired power plants. And that's, in the total energy mix in India, 70-80% coal-fired power plants. That's a massive pollution problem in India, in large parts of India, but clearly also a massive global challenge in terms of the CO2 emissions. We need to make sure that that growth going forward is taken on by renewables, by solar, by wind, and by some extent hydropower. But and the good thing is that this is fully understood by India. There are aggressive policies to grow renewables, the good auction processes. There's a lot going on, and they're investing in some of the biggest solar parks currently in the world are in India. And there's a lot going on. But there's a lack of funding, both for the renewable assets as such. There's a lack of funding for transmission lines, and we are investing heavily. We've decided to be investing on the climate fund. Traditionally, Norfund did not invest much in India because India has not been seeking for development aid, but we've done some microfinance, we've done some fintechs and the likes. But now, on the climate mandate that the government has set up, our task is to maximize the climate effect, i.e. to reduce and avoid as much CO2 emission as possible. And going for India, we can really maximize that. So we take minority stakes, we invest in large solar plants, in wind farms. We go with Indian partners. We invest into Indian companies. We're large investing companies like Sahel that does biogas and solar, and Fourth Partner and others. And some of them, after we've come in, have been able to raise further funding. Sahel just did a bond issue of $500 million. Fourth Partners raised $275 million recently. So there's a lot going on. But our funding helps kickstarting that process. We need also private funders to go with us. International funders, but also Norwegian funders. KLP, the pension fund here in Norway, has been co-investing with us quite a lot. But we can also have others. Those investments are also profitable. We believe in them in terms of, and the returns that we can show for are attractive.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I really think that what you are doing in India and also over the world is a very good example of this blended finance, where you can use public capital to mobilize also private capital and to achieve a more common green goal. So that's great. Moving away a little bit from renewable energy and back to circular economy, we have with us the leaders of two very important Norwegian companies within circular economy, recycling and waste management. So that is Tove Andersen, CEO of Tomra, and we also have Per Lillebø, founder and chair of Cambi. So I'll start by asking Tomra first. I know that Tomra has been working a lot on policy development also, of course, in this sector for circular solutions. So where do you see the potential for Norwegian solutions in a market like India? And how do you work with Indian partners on this issue?
Thank you, and great to be here and great to talk about India. I think we have a panel of India lovers here, and also hearing, the facts and figures about India today and the projections going forward. Any business with international ambitions needs to focus on India. Tomra, I think for the Norwegians in the room, we are often known as Panteselskapet Tomra, but Tomra is much more than that, and half of our business is sorting solutions. And that's where today we are mainly active in India, and that is sorting solutions for different materials so that they can be recycled. So how do we work, and where do I see the opportunities for Norway in India? We have, as also was mentioned in some of the introductions, there are certain niche segments, niche technologies where we are leading. Kambi is a good example. Tomra is a good example. We are leading in the world on sensor-based sorting. We have 50 years experience from that in Norway. And that's a technology that can help India meet its targets linked to the green transitions. So we work also in good cooperations with the embassy and with the Innovation Norway to then share the experience that we have from Norway on how do you actually implement this to get a real impact. However, at the same time, we also need to be aware that we can't believe that we can just export what we have done in Norway and just implement it in India. So it's really about taking that expertise we have, combining that with people with local knowledge so that you also see how you can adjust those kind of solutions. So we're trying to have then a good cooperations with local people on the ground, understanding India, but bringing then the experiences we have from Norway and 100 other markets where we operate in.
Thank you so much. And basically also the same question to you, Per. I know that you have been working long time towards India and in the Indian market. So how do you see it? What is your experience? And what is sort of the key for Norwegian companies to succeed in India?
Yeah, I think you said the right word. You have to be long-term. You have to be patient. And you must never give up. It is a tough market, there's no doubt. It is maybe the toughest market that I've been in, and we have built plants in 27 countries. But India is by far the biggest trophy. It is far too big to be ignored. So if you are serious about building an international business, you just have to be there. I like the number 263, just to illustrate the market potential for our technology. I explained that a bit afterwards. But in Norway, we have so far built 10 plants. And I think there are 7, 8 more to be built. So that means you can multiply that number by 263 and you get the market potential. And so far we have built around close to 90, servicing 120 million people. But truly, Kambi is I think it's a very good example of circular economy. What we are dealing with is to treat the sludge, that is what is left over after you have treated the wastewater. And India has a lot of wastewater. They really need to start to clean up the rivers, the lakes, the surrounding seas, etc. So what we do with that sludge is that we produce biogas from it, and the biogas you can produce electricity or transportation fuel or whatever. And what is rest is some people describe it as a fertilizer, but I will mainly say it is a soil improver. So actually we make something really useful out of a very unpleasant product. And the soil improver is maybe one of the most important products that comes out of this process, because I've learned in India that they have depleted the agricultural soil to such an extent that it is hardly fertile. Yeah, at least they need to supply huge amounts of artificial or industrial produced fertilizer in order to make it fertile. So you need to rebuild the carbon content in the soil. I've heard it is down to 0.4. In order to be fertile, you need a carbon content of between 2 to 4 at least to be fertile. So there is a big job to be done. But I understand what impresses me with India is they seem to understand the importance of regulations. And I understand now that there is a program in order to recultivate the soil condition and recreate more, come back to the natural condition that the soil was in. And that will be a fantastic driver for good technologies. Another thing that I really like to mention before, I don't have that much of the time to talk, but the importance of having demonstration or first plants in any market. It is incredibly important because we are selling to municipal sector, and municipal sector is a very conservative sector. They do not want to take unnecessary risks, and they trust. And they can go abroad and look at all our other plants, but they want to see them in their own environment, on their own climate conditions, on their own sludge, etc. So it's so much easier to demonstrate our technologies through inland or close by plants. So it is to having demonstration plants that are well working, well functioning is incredibly important. And also to work with universities and get the support from the leading academic in any country. That has always been the way Cambi has been working. And as I said, as I started, never give up. You just have to continue to follow this incredibly interesting market, overrunning China by far as I see it because of language abilities, rule of law, etc. It is the biggest democracy on earth and seems to be very well functioning. So, yeah, I think I've said enough. And my enthusiasm for India is, it's just doesn't stop.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to our last panelist. So, Samit, you are an expert member of the Center for Ganga River Basin Management and Studies. And I know that you have also been working closely with Norway for some time. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you do in water and river systems management and advancing circular economy in India, and why Norway is an important partner for you?
Great, thank you, Excellencies, Minister. Thanks for having me today. So I'll carry on the example of 263. So Sea Ganga, as we call it in short, is the master planner, think tank, and innovation agency to the Ganga River Basin Authority, which is the most populous and complex authority in the world. Just to give you some numbers, we manage, the river itself is 2,700 kilometers long, 1 million square kilometers in area, and 600 million people live in that river system. If I talk about numbers, the amount of wastewater we're generating every day, it's 15 billion liters of wastewater we're generating just in that one river system, and there are many more in the country. So we started the journey in 2010 when the authority was established. There were previous attempts, but nowhere near the size that it is now. And the World Bank provided a huge loan. And till date, I would say in the last 14 years, we've spent about $20 billion in this sector. Right? So that's the sort of size of economy. And we still have 80, 90 billion more to go. A lot of people think cleaning river systems is easy. On an average, any river system in the world is 30 to 50 years it takes to clean up, right? And that's the size of the challenge that we are facing. But with the advent of technology, our journey is a lot faster, and I think we'll get there in half the time. We're 15 years in another 10 years, you'll see significant difference in the quality of Indian rivers. Now, having said that, it's not devoid of any challenges and problems. So when we started looking at technologies from around the world, including Norway, the one constant problem that a lot of the technology companies, particularly in the environment sector, face is not lack of, I would say, is incomplete policy environment, right? Whilst there is a policy framework, but it is not complete as you would have it in your home economies. So country after country, we saw that problem. And typically, the two most common sentences spoken in any dialogue between a technology provider and the municipal administrator. So municipal administrators will say, well, show me that your tech is working in Bangalore and not in Bergen. And the technology company will say, well, give us a chance. And the municipal administrator will say, well, sorry, you have to come through a public procurement process, right? And there you fall in a chicken and egg trap, because you will not qualify for the public procurement because you don't have any installations on ground in country. So whilst we removed a lot of that and we said, okay, installations anywhere in the world, then you run into the second problem, which is at what price points, right? So the price points you're used to in Norway or Europe or developed world are diametrically opposite to the price points in India, right? So you're in the waste business, you'll be lucky if you get 30 euros or dollars a ton gate fee as opposed to 200 euros dollars a ton gate fee. And that's because we've had a number of false starts in the past, and that's one thing that India has now changed in the last 5 or 7 years, that we look at examples from all around the world, and I'm grateful to the Norwegian government. Through NORAD, we looked at sludge as a big problem, because if 20 billion is gone in as an investment in the wastewater sector, the amount of sludge that'll get produced is huge. So we couldn't go in without having a technology. So NORAD, in partnership with us and NIBIO and Norwaste and a number of experts, we developed the first policy construct on sludge management. And the challenge was, whilst the sludge is being produced and producing great product, the buyer is not the municipality. The buyer is another ministry, which is Ministry of Fertilizer, right? Which, so now how do I link that bridge, right? Because every municipality will say, well, it's not my job to sell the fertilizer or soil conditioner as a product. So then we had to create a demand side on the fertilizer ministry side, which is looking at the soil, the carbon content in topsoil in India. For a soil to be called organic, you must have 16, 17, 18% carbon content. Indian soils in most states are at 0.3, 0.4% carbon content, which means we are running on ventilator, which is urea and chemical fertilizer. So we had to create demand on one side for the technology to get adopted. So that's the example on how policy and technology and global partnerships can work together. And very quickly, 2 or 3 or 4 more examples. So on plastic waste, we're launching a mega program on cleaning surface water or floating debris, right? As you would know, 80% of pollution in ocean comes from rivers. So we're starting with a 1 million square kilometer area and the largest plastic cleanup program in the world. You do it, Afroz, in Mumbai, right? In VT River, I have a slightly larger footprint to manage. We're starting decarbonization of water sector. Now, water sector, 60 to 70% of cost of water in any form is power, right? So we cannot afford that the power sector, the water sector carries on polluting. So do gas capture, do resource recovery. So we're starting that as a program. We're starting sorting as a service on municipal solid waste, right, nationally, because downstream of sorting is the easy part, but sorting is the hardest part. So these are some examples of how policy and technology work together. And finally, coming to the finance angle, as you mentioned, right, and the capital requirement is not 400 billion, it's $1 trillion today. Now, where will we find that kind of money? So we're using 2 amazing programs. One on blended finance is how do you mix private sector and impact capital coming together and reduce the cost of funding to large infrastructure projects that have huge economic impact. And to do so, we are creating global feeder funds. So rather than you having come all the way to India, we're establishing global feeder funds, both listed and private, in a number of jurisdictions, and Norway is definitely on the target, and love to have a conversation with you and others. So I think India and Norway, the final point, can partner not just to solve India's problems of climate and environment, but the global South's problems of climate and environment. So what we say, come to India and we'll hyper-accelerate to you to the entire emerging markets. So
perfect. Thank you so much. We are running out of time, so I will just open the floor for one final comment from any of the participants before we have to run off. So if anyone has some remarks.
Well, I very much, I mean, these were excellent comments, and I just want to underline that, you know, for one of the, India is interesting because it's big and because it grows and because it's high-tech and because it develops in so many fronts. Of course, a prerequisite for that further development is that we deal with the nature and pollution and climate crisis, because otherwise that will be a hamper to India's growth. Also because these issues, you know, because of the population size, you know, compared to the physical size, these really matter also for Indian economy, not only for pollution and life and so on, but it will hamper economic growth there as everywhere else on the planet. So it's really worthwhile to partner with a country like India who sees this. And I have been involved myself in the last 3 climate COPs as a lead negotiator at one of the plastic agreement from UNEA and also from the biodiversity conference in Montreal, and these were all great successes. India was, I should say, a tough negotiator in all these, but we managed, and it was always a key player in the final hours of these conversations, and we managed together to set some very high goals. And in the trade agreement, of course, we have some, as you mentioned, some goals in the agreement, but they're mainly they are references to multilateral common goals that we agreed together in UN forests. So, you know, trying to fulfill those bold ambitions that in principle are words on paper until you do something through this partnership is great. And the good news about that is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the thing to do that will bring more wealth and growth, because these will be the products and the solution, whether it's sort of renewable energy or better soil health, you know, how to fertilize, not fertilize, but how to regain levels of carbon and phosphates and nitrogen in the soil, which has been severely depleted in India and in many other places. These are challenges that combine, you know, a sort of global quest for fixing the planet with new opportunities for growth.
Thank you. I think that was excellently summed up.
Just to add on to what the minister said, I must inform everybody that, you know, India does not have a Circular Economy Act as of now, and so does Norway. We all governed by policies and guidelines, and, you know, a minister will vouch for it. A guideline which comes from a parliament has much more force to push through, because every authority is bound by it. Now, we talk loosely and we say that we have to follow circular economy. Of course, we know we all have to do it. And if the Indian Parliament ever passes a Circular Economy Act, there'll be much force to this agreement, because there'll be mandate of law saying that, please, we have to do this, this, this. So, you know, what is lacking is a Circular Economy Act in India, and similarly in Norway, I don't think so. Correct me, Minister, there's no Circular Economy Act. So we are all governed by policies and guidelines. Policies can change.
Working on it.
That's good news. So as a lawyer, I'm very keen that both our countries pass the Circular Economy Act. It is vital and it's needed now, and we'll be the first leaders if we do it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so much to all the panelists for your insights and your enthusiasm. We're all India enthusiasts here on the stage, and I think that's a very good sign for the cooperation between Norway and India going forward. Thank you so much. And then I will introduce the final speaker. The final speaker for today is the new Consul General Designate of the Norwegian Consulate in Mumbai, and she will say a few final words, and then we will end the event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Silja, for that introduction. Dear Minister, Excellencies, panelists, dear ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this very interesting event, I would like to express my gratitude to all of you for your participation and engagement. It has been a pleasure to hear from experts and stakeholders on various important topics related to Norway-India relations, including the historic trade and economic partnership agreement between EFTA and India, Norwegian business and investments in India, and circular economy and the green transition. Mindful of the time, I am not going to try and conclude or sum up this very broad and engaging discussion. But I would just like to come back to what we have all heard from all speakers today, how India is the world's fastest growing economy and also has set ambitious climate goals. And how the TEPA provides great opportunities for trade and investment in India for Norwegian businesses. But the TEPA is not only a trade agreement. It's a trade and economic partnership agreement. And I think that what we have, if I should sum up from the discussion today, what we have heard is that there's already a substantial and broad cooperation between Norway and India, and that the TEPA provides a good framework for increasing this cooperation and for joint development. So not going further into what has been the subject of discussion today, I just wanted to come back to, as my colleague Celia said today, I will be heading to Mumbai to take up the position as Norwegian Consul General, covering the 3 important states of Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Goa. As I'm sure all of you know, Mumbai is the financial and industrial capital of India and South Asia, and a hub for many Norwegian companies doing business in India. The Consulate General in Mumbai is there to support Norwegian businesses by providing a platform for business promotion and networking and opening doors together with our Team Norway partners. I would like to thank Nikki, Innovation Norway, and the Norwegian Embassy in New Delhi for the cooperation on the events here in Arendal. You have done a great job in organizing and facilitating these sessions, and I look forward to continuing working with you from my new office in Mumbai. Finally, a huge thanks to all the speakers and panelists for sharing your insights and perspectives. You have really boosted our understanding of the opportunities in the Norway-India partnership, and I'm sure that many people have been inspired to explore new avenues for collaboration. Before closing, could I please ask all experts and panelists to join me here on the stage so we could thank you all off together. And yes, now, please. And also thank you for giving me the opportunity to share some brief remarks. And I hope that to all participants that you have enjoyed the event as much as I have. And I hope to see you all at the networking reception straight after this event and later at the Research and Higher Education Seminar starting at 5 o'clock in the UIA tent. Thank you so much.
Very chaotic.